In December 2012, God began stirring my heart to take the ministry of CCI into Cuba to equip leaders for ministry. Since that time, however, it seemed that God was telling me that this wasn't the right time. God kept prompting me to pray for Cuba, to wait for his time. At the end of 2015, God flooded us with opportunities to reach Cuba. One of those included an invitation to travel to Cuba with the team from Haven Today Radio Ministry. In March 2016, I traveled to Cuba to explore how CCI and Haven Today could work together to meet the two most pressing needs in Cuba: Bibles and biblical training. Haven Today has a vision of supplying 1 million Bibles to Cuba. CCI will provide seminary-trained leaders with the resources, training, and vision to provide leadership training throughout the house churches in Cuba. Shortly after I left Cuba, President Obama traveled in an effort to open doors for economic opportunities. We're praying for God to provide spiritual and biblical opportunities for the training of leaders across the entire nation.
A joint ministry team from Haven Today Radio Ministries and Caution Cultures International traveled to Cuba on March 14th for a week of traveling throughout the western half of Cuba. We were going to be distributing Bibles. We were going to be distributing children's storybooks in both English and Spanish. And we were going to be discovering how CCI could work with pastors throughout the country to train and equip local lay church leaders who are running the house churches throughout the country. There's about 10,000 of these house churches, and most of them are being run by people who have no formal training and very little informal training on how to be effective ministers and pastors. So we were going to go into the country to figure out how we could take CCI's training and equipping ministry to reach into their lives. We traveled throughout the western part of Haiti. We met in small churches, and some churches who were larger, some churches who had been in existence prior to the revolution and were able to sustain themselves for the past 40 years. We met with believers, we met with church leaders, we even met with the military, and the support for Christ and for church and what's happening there was overwhelming. We would get together in the town, and there would be people traveling from hours away. They would come in by bus, they'd come in by dump truck taxis, they'd come in by auto taxi and motorcycle taxis, using four-wheel drives and classic cars, motorcycles, scooters, bicycles, bicycle taxis, and by foot. Let's see and hear a little bit about what is happening during this trip. Pastor Gilberto is 27 years old, and he oversees a church of about 300 people in a town nearby where we were at in Pinar del Rio. He also, because of the size of the church and the growth in that church, he also oversees about 20 house churches. Now, the house churches are being led by lay leaders, and they have no formal training. Now, he's been through seminary, and he has an earnest desire to train his lay leaders to be able to run the house churches effectively. When he heard what we were planning to do, to return in November to train pastors, to be able to fully equip their lay leaders, to be able to handle and maintain and run and plant new churches, he was so excited. And he is so looking forward to our return in November. We're going to be working with a couple of people in Cuba. The one here on the left is an individual whose name is Joel DePico. He runs and oversees the Council of Churches in Cuba. He oversees the work of 50 denominations throughout the entire country. To his left, on the right of the picture, is Pastor Elian. Elian runs the Bible Commission for Cuba. Elian is going to be able to provide books, print the books in Cuba so that they can be provided to the Cuban people at very little cost. And Pastor DePico, because of his work with all of these different denominations, is going to be our lead point for identifying seminary-trained and Bible college-trained pastors who will be able to spread this training program throughout the church in Cuba and across all the denominations. So finally, I just want to thank you for the work that you've done. You have been so faithful in praying for us. You've been faithful in providing for us.